Hey, everybody. Happy Saturday. I had to grab some coffee. How cute is this mug? It's like one of my favorites. I don't know if you can see it because of that light. There it goes. I love this mug. This was a gift from my amazing mother-in-law. You guys, I asked for questions and y'all delivered because there are a lot of questions. So this is going to take some time, but thank you for everybody showing up for a live Q&A. I do have a gazillion questions. That's a technical term. So many questions. So I know that I'm probably not going to get to everything, but I will get to as many as I can. So yay. Hi, Kaya. Thank you, Shannon. It says believe. I love these little t-shirts. They make me happy. Yay. Thank you so much. Thank you all for showing up. I appreciate it. So hopefully George will be here as well. I'm not sure. The baby was napping, so we'll see if she stays napping or not. I do have my glasses on so that I can read the chat. I will do my best to check in also and see if there are enough, if there are some chat questions coming up as well, because there are way too many questions. Like George was trying to sort through them. And it's like enough questions for me to talk for like 3 hours worth of chat. So I'm going to do my best. Some of them I might have short answers for and try to grab them. Others we'll see if there's time to just kind of check in on the chat every once in a while. But this should be a lot of fun. So if you have some coffee too, go ahead and grab it. Emmy, 3 hours is good. I agree. I could probably sit here chatting with you guys for 3 hours, but I don't know that my husband would appreciate that very much. I should have made coffee 30 minutes ago so I could actually drink it because I'm sure I'll forget about it, but I can heat it up afterward. Alexis, oh my gosh, hi. I'm so excited you're here. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started. Curious bunch of fans. Still seems like a day off, I know. All right, so I will try to say, who it is that asked the question, and we'll just kind of go through them as quickly as possible. Yeah, I'll look and let me answer like a few questions, then I'll start looking in the chat. So Tara Jordan asked, how are you and your family doing right now? Which I thought was such a sweet, like almost first question that went up because it's just so thoughtful to think of me. So thank you so much, Tara, for asking. We are actually doing pretty well. We haven't been as disrupted as some other families like you guys might have been, some of you, because my husband and I both are home all the time anyway with the baby. Like I work from home, my husband works from home. So we didn't get as disrupted as a lot of people do. The main thing that's been disruptive for me is that I do like to go out to coffee shops. I'm an extrovert. I usually meet up with my friends once or twice a week. And it's just been, that's the most difficult part of it. And of course, we have our son home with us all day, every day, and have to figure out the homeschooling type stuff. But I think it's getting easier over time to kind of figure out what is going on with the homeschool stuff. So we're doing pretty good. Thank you for asking. So Amanda Faye says, how do you do it all? Writer, businesswoman, mother, housewife, cook, cleaner, opera singer, blah, 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 blah. All of these things. And she's like, I can barely get dressed, plus look after the kids. Well, sometimes I think, with social media and all the other things that you guys see is like you see a piece of what happens, and it's easy when you're just presenting a piece of your life to people to present only the best parts. Like, oh, look at me, I get it all done. And I never try to make that impression, but I think sometimes when you're on the outside looking in at people's lives, it seems like, wow, they've got it all together. But truth be told, if you saw the way the rest of this office looks right now, it's not clean at all. I've got like junk on my desk right here. It looks super clean behind me because I'm presenting that to you. But there's like so many boxes I need to go through. There's planner stuff I need to go through. My closet is a mess upstairs. So it's like, I don't do it all. And I don't know if anybody does. And one of the main things is that I really try not to beat myself up about it when I don't get it all done because like you guys got a chance to kind of stare at this Kanban board that I got to reset yesterday, but I had a ton of stuff at the top of that list that just didn't get done over the course of the quarter. I don't know how many people really and truly get it all done. And I do have actually just spent the morning editing a vlog for you that will go up tomorrow. That's like a day in the life. And it basically follows me and the family all day from 7:30 in the morning until midnight at night last night. So I recorded the vlog all day yesterday and then edited it today. So you guys will see kind of what a day in the life looks like for me. And, sometimes I think that one of the main reasons that I get so much done is because everything that I'm doing is something I'm passionate about. When I have to do things that I don't like, I procrastinate them for sure. So obviously cleaning up, I'm naturally a clutter kind of person, even if you don't see that. And even this stuff is way too cluttered for my husband, but I don't necessarily love to clean up. So then I try to figure out how I can, do that in sprints or make it more enjoyable, play a lot of music, do things like that. Also, I have George here and he's a partner for me and he, has taken over a lot of the household stuff that I wasn't able to do when I was pregnant and things like that. So, having a partner really, really helps a lot, especially a partner like him, who is so helpful. So I think that being passionate about what you're doing in the world and feeling like what you're doing is truly what you were meant to do and not giving up until you figure out what that is and how you really want to show up is key to getting stuff done. This is why I always tell people and this is purely my opinion, no judgment meant, but I always tell people write what you love because if you start writing just for money and you're not writing a genre that you love, it's going to end up where eventually you just can't do it anymore because you're not following your passion. And so when other things in life get hard, it becomes really difficult to write because I love what I'm writing and it's still been difficult to write for the past year. So that's kind of the two parts to that answer is I don't get it all done, even if it does look like I do. And second of all, I think I get more done than ever because I continue to focus only on the things that I'm super passionate about. So hopefully that's a good answer. Tracy Mayhew says, how do you get inspired / where do your ideas come from? Oh my gosh. So this is a fun question because I think the ideas just come randomly. There's another question that kind of bumps up against this one, but I often will just be consuming media like a TV series or something else. And it'll be like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if it was this, but a little bit different? Or wouldn't it be cool if you had this kind of heroine doing this other thing? So I've talked about this a million times before, but the Shadow Demon Saga, my character Harper, came from a binge session of watching Veronica Mars. And Veronica Mars has no witches or tarot or anything witchy, but it's mystery and it's a snarky heroine who's like not popular anymore, but kind of still wants to be because she used to be. And so I pulled inspiration from that show and was like, wouldn't it be cool if you had a snarky kind of on the outs heroine who solved mysteries, but is a witch? And so that's like the kernel of the idea for that. So a lot of times it'll come from watching TV series. It'll come from just conversations with my husband about things that we like or like playing games. But a lot of times also it'll just be a random scene, either in a dream or somewhere, just like walking around and I'll see something and just think, ooh, wouldn't it be neat? Like just like a piece of a little movie playing in my mind. Like I have a story that I've actually partially written and just haven't finished, which is The Haunting of Luna Day. And this story is something I will be writing within the next year or two because I absolutely love it. But that idea just came to me as an image of a girl standing in a room that she obviously didn't belong in. She obviously was not a girly girl. She wore all dark clothes, dark hair, kind of, more alternative type of clothing. But she was in this pristine, very girly girl, rich bedroom. And she was just walking through the closet and her fingers were kind of touching these clothes, like really fancy dresses and expensive, like shirts and different stuff like that. And that's all I saw in my head was just that. And that immediately just came to me like, what is this story? I need to experience this. Like, what is happening? She doesn't belong there. Whose room is she in? And that started asking questions in my head. And it's a similar thing to this story with the witch's key. Is I can't tell you the scene that I saw because it's going to be in the very last episode, but I saw a scene in my head and I was like, ooh, that's just a cool thing. So sometimes I don't even know where the story ideas come from. It's just like a little snippet of a feeling that, or a scene in my head, like a movie, that will just spur the whole idea. So it's kind of an interesting thing. So in terms of how I get inspired, I don't know if that's exactly the same question, but it's just, I think all story starts to inspire me after a while. Is like, if something sparks that imagination, I just naturally get super excited about it. And if something excites me to that level, then I have to just keep going with it. How do you decide how long a series will be? Well, that's kind of a question thing. I will tell you guys that scene, I promise. So how long a series is going to be, a couple of people asked this question. It's really, really hard for me to decide. When I started the Shadow Demon saga, it was called the Peachful High Demons series. And I thought it was going to be a trilogy. And I told George, this has been more than 10 years ago now. I said, I'm going to write this trilogy, and it was literally going to be 3 books. And now we're going on, 16 or 15 books, including all the side stories. So I obviously don't decide. It's just kind of like, is there more story to tell or not? If the story is just completely over and I think that it had a fitting ending and that was all that needed to be said about it, that would be the end of it. When it comes to the Eternal Sorrows series, I'm writing the last book, which is a trilogy. And I think that for me, it just felt like I could kind of see the beginning and the end, like bookends. And so for me, it's just a matter of pacing and instinct. And I know that's not a great answer for someone looking for inspiration of how to tell how long their series is going to be, but instinct is a big part of it for me. Like, does it have more story to tell or not? And yeah, for sure. I think that sometimes it just depends on, once I get to book 3, does it have more story? And then yes, then I go to 4 or 5 or 6. And I thought originally that even, after I started back on the second kind of half of the Shadow Demon saga, I thought, oh, it's going to be done at book 11. But then I started to realize there's no way I can get through all of the plot that needs to happen, all the character stuff that needs to happen in just one more book. So now it's going to be 12 books. And who knows, maybe I'll write book 11 and be like, no way, it only finishes in one book. Well, we just have to stay flexible, I think. Carrie says, how do you decide what stories to write and what should wait? So this is kind of a similar question, but I think maybe what she means is like, how do you decide what to write right now and what to write later? So for example, one thing for me, I have this idea I've told you guys about before that's like a tarot witch type story where it's 4 sisters who each control a part of the tarot. So one is a Pentacles witch, one is a Cups witch, and so on. So they have a control of the elements. This is an idea that I really, really love and have had for years and have kind of made notes and played around with it. But there's an instinct inside of me that says I'm not ready to write that story yet because I need more skill. I need to learn a little bit more about how to write. I feel the same way about Loxley, which is an idea that I have for like virtual reality. I wrote the like a short story on this character, but I have a whole big series idea that follows that world, but I feel like I'm not good enough writer yet to write it. So just instinctually, I say that I'm not ready for that story. So sometimes that's what I have to do. Sometimes it's kind of like, well, I have 3 series going right now. Do I write a Spirit Walkers book or do I write a Shadow Demons book? And when it comes to that type of question, it's just all about, what do I feel most connected to right now? How is it going to affect me? Like, I decided to finish out Fate's Surrender because I think that having that book done and that series done when I know people have been waiting for several years will allow me a little bit of freedom to really focus on the Shadow Demon saga. So sometimes it's strategy. Sometimes it's just this instinct that I need more time. to tell the story. So she also asks, what's your favorite time to write? So I think that I prefer to write at night, but lately, because I don't get enough sleep, I definitely like to write in the morning because I feel like my brain works better in the morning. But it's just right now, my favorite time to write is whenever I get a chance to write, because that's just the way it is. I do see a few questions coming. Like Jeanette says, what is your idea of a short story? So I am not great at short stories, but I think short story is pretty much anything less than 10,000 words. Like usually when they give us here's, you're writing a short story or whatever, they say it needs to be 8,000 words or less or something like that. Most of my short stories end up being about 8,000 to 9,000 words because I always write a little bit long. But I think that short stories really should be encapsulated story. Like you've got basically the plot of a novel in a short story and just told in short form. But like I said, I'm really not great at short stories, to be honest. Molasses, and I couldn't see the rest of it on Instagram, said, how would you deal with someone who does not necessarily support your dream? So this is a really tough question. If you have a dream of being a writer, or you have a dream of being a YouTuber, or anything, any kind of dream, especially creatively, and you don't have the support system in your life, it can be really difficult to just go ahead and follow your dream. It can also be really difficult to have a partner or friends or a parent who constantly tells you that you can't do it or you shouldn't do it. The way that I have dealt with that in the past, I mean, my husband has been incredibly supportive right from the start, but I have a mother that's a narcissistic mother who has always been like, well, you're never going to get a deal. You're no good, that kind of thing. And, the way that I really internalized that a lot in the beginning, but the way that I would deal with that kind of thing now, and I also have had a friend somewhat recently who was like, you can't have a baby, you're going to destroy your career, or you can't talk about planners. That's a stupid idea. So you do end up with people, even people you care about that you want to keep in your life or that you love, who may think your ideas are stupid or that you're not going to be able to do it. So the way that I deal with that personally, and I recommend you deal with it if you can, is to just stop talking to that person about your dreams. Just if you have to have them in your life, then talk to them about other things. And if they try to talk about your dreams, just say, you know what, I'm not comfortable talking about that right now. So, you just say, that, oh, I've got it under control. I don't need to talk about that career right now. And just go away from that and live your life and do your dreams the way you need to do. Because if you feel in your heart that that dream is for you, then it probably is for you. And don't let anybody tell you that it's not. And if you have people that are telling you it's not your dream. Yeah, exactly, Nilda. It's like, if you can cut that person from your life and they're bad for you in a lot of ways, then cut them from your life. But if you have to have them in your life, or you want them in your life for other things, just stop sharing your dreams with them and talk to people that lift you up, even if it's just people that you find online. Christabel, what does she think about your career now? I don't know. I haven't actually seen or spoken to my mother in 4 years now, because it was just a very emotionally abusive relationship, which is super personal information. So I'm sorry if that bothers anybody, but I'm kind of an open book. But I just came to a point in my own life where I was like, you know what? I'm not going to let anybody abuse me emotionally anymore. And I'm going to live my life for joy. And I'm just going to cut people out of my life who, it's not just people who disagree with me, because I have a lot of people in my life that disagree and we have good conversations. George sometimes disagrees with me. That's not what it is. It's abuse, and I just decided I wasn't going to let people treat me like that anymore. So, that's kind of my little story there. So Esmeralda Winchester on IG also said, how do I overcome the fear of people judging my work? Whew, you guys, that is a really true and, hard fear. When people judge your work, it hurts. And the honest truth is, not everybody is going to judge your work. People are going to not like it. People are going to say it's terrible. People are going to say that, even just on YouTube, people will say, oh, nobody wants to hear what you have to say. Or, your face is ugly. Like, who knows? People say all kinds of crazy things on social media. And George says, I disagree about how often we disagree. Oh my gosh, this guy, you guys, I love him. So I think that when it comes to fear of people judging your work is if you need to create your work away from other people and don't think about them. Don't hold yourself back of like, ooh, because I think that sometimes as writers, when we're writing and we're worried about the feedback people are going to give us, we stop writing. And we also, like, this is a mistake I made early in my career is because I thought I was going to be a traditionally published author. And that's what I was going for because indie wasn't the way it is now. And so I was thinking about the agents that I was going to submit my books to. So whenever I would write, I would always have those agents in mind and I would write for them instead of writing for myself. And so I would change things. Like I had an agent that was like my dream agent and she was a blogger too. And anytime she would say, oh, I hate it when stories start this way, I would be like, oh, I got to change my whole book, you know? And because I let that fear of what other people would say in judgment of my writing, I changed the way I would write. And then guess what happened? Nobody wanted to buy my books. You know, I submitted it to that agent. She still didn't like it. So it's like I hit a point where I was like, you know, I'm just going to write the way I want to write. And if people want to say it sucks, then they can say it sucks. But at least I'm getting it out there and at least I'm putting it on the line. If you go and you look at your absolute favorite authors, favorite books, favorite movies, your favorite things in life, even your favorite planner, you know, your favorite anything, and you go look for reviews, there are going to be terrible reviews for it. Even like things that you think are the best books of all time, like Gone with the Wind or Harry Potter or, you know, classic things. There are thousands of one-star reviews that people say are the worst ever. And so you have to just say, I understand that people are not going to like my work, but I'm going to create it for me. I'm going to create something that I can be proud of. And then, you know, try not to read your reviews when they first come out because some people it can be really hard. And it's just one of those things that I think you have to start developing a thick skin about. I still am sensitive to this because yes, it will be, this will just go live after we're here. It'll just go on as a video replay. I still get sensitive about it. Like, you know, just recently there were some people talking about how they found it difficult to read my multiple POV stuff and they kept having to go back to the beginning. That is a valid concern. Multiple POV stuff can be really difficult to follow, especially the way I write it where it's first person. So, you know, it's a valid comment. It still hurt my feelings. It was still hard to hear, but it's like, as a creator, you have to learn to accept those judgments because it doesn't mean that you're not good. It just means that you can't please everybody and we're all different and multifaceted and you just have to respect that and create for yourself. All right. I'm not going fast enough, you guys. I thought I would get through these so fast. Vidipsa, I don't know. This is just a name on Instagram. Do you think newbie indie authors should release their books during this time? Okay, this is too hard of a question to totally answer right now, but I will say if you come follow me on Heart Breathings, I would like to talk about this on my Heart Breathings channel. I think you should still release your books no matter what. But I always think that if you're going to be releasing, no matter when you're releasing, you need to come up with a strategy for it instead of just being like, I'm going to put this one book out and hope that I hit the bestseller list. You're writing no matter what times you're writing in. If you're an indie author, you have to have strategy behind it. So that's all I'm going to say for now. But I think that, you know, we are on a downturn for sure with sales because a lot of people just lost their jobs. There's going to be a lot of people not able to spend a lot of extra money right now. And so a lot of different things in our economy are going to see downturns. But I think that the longer you hold back on your dreams and thinking, well, the time's not right. A lot of people will say to me, well, you're only successful because you started all the way back in 2010. So, it's too hard to start. It's too late to start now. But you know what? There will be people 10 years from now that'll say to somebody, well, you're only successful because you started in 2020. If I had started in 2020, then I would have, been successful too. It's just, you can't go back in the past and you can't predict the future. So start now and just come up with a strategy that's going to help you be successful. Quixotic Lee says, what new series or story ideas are you inspired to create? There's a lot of people just want me to finish the ones that I have right now. So I know I need to focus there. I have those three ghost story books that I tried to write last year. So one is The Disappearance of Vanessa Shaw. It's halfway done. And then the second book it's not exactly a series because they're totally like separate stories. They're standalones. The second one is The Possession of Mira Black. And then the third one is The Haunting of Luna Day. I really want to write those. It's not exactly a series, but they're all kind of like ghost story type things. And then I also have that Tarot Witches idea. I would like to write more Witches Key. I would like to write the Loxley type story. And there's more, y'all. There's so many more. It's really, really tough because ideas just continue to come no matter what. Alexis Daria says, how do you build up the motivation to start a new project? So for me, starting a new project always is all about the stationery. And you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but this is true. Like when I know that I'm starting a brand new project, it's all about like, how many POVs am I going to have? What color represents this character? And I just get all the little tools together. I will make my own index cards if I need to. I get my little pins out that match the character, my stickers, I get it all together. And for some reason that starts to get me really excited. Another thing that gives me the motivation to start a project is talking through it with my husband. Like I'll say to him, here's the idea, let's go talk about it. And we'll either be driving in the car, going out to dinner. I always have like a pencil and everything or pen and stuff with me at dinner. We'll go out walking, but it's like talking about the idea with somebody that I know is going to be supportive of it. And I mean, he's here listening, but he often has terrible ideas, but those terrible ideas give me the next, it's a springboard for the next idea. And that gets me really excited. Sometimes there's that nervousness to start, especially if it's like a really good idea that I've had for a long time. It's like, oh, what if I can't tell it the way that I want to? So in that case, I have to kind of trick my brain of like, okay, I'm just writing a rough draft and we'll have to see how it comes out. But I think that for me is the motivation, talking through the idea, sitting down with all my little stationery tools, that gives me the motivation to get started on it. The harder part is once the motivation and like excitement of the first act is over, then it gets harder to stick with it. So the motivation to continue can be a little bit more challenging, I think. Steph Vernon says, how important is it to you that you have a dedicated area to do your writing in? And then Bethy asked a follow-up question about, do I have any rituals or things I like to have with me? So pretty much always at all times, I have some little Hello Kitty with me. She goes in my pencil case, or I have a crystal or a Hello Kitty pretty much always with me. And so that's kind of like my little talismans. I don't have it here, but usually when I'm starting a new series or a new book, I will pick out a candle scent. So it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the book. Like it's not a scent from the book or anything like that, but it's just, I'll go pick out a new candle at Home Goods back, when we could shop freely. And that will be my candle. And it's like a mental cue of when I light this candle, it's time to sit down and write this book. So that's kind of my biggest rituals, I would say. And when it comes to a dedicated place to writing, it's really not super important to me. I can write on the couch. I can write here at this desk or at my gaming desk. I'm not really super attached to a specific place so much as I am attached to like writing in Google Docs, like my, having my stuff and my plotting notebook and everything arranged the way that I like it. That's more important to me than a specific place. I tried a couple of times creating like a little office closet and thinking like, I'm going to go into this little room and like have my own little space. But that never worked for me. I like to be able to move around, which is part of why it's been emotionally difficult for me to have to be forced to stay at home. I like to write around lots of different places. We're finally to page 2. So Amelia says, where did you learn to write? So really and truly, I taught myself how to write. I have never taken a creative writing course. I did double major in opera singing or vocal performance and English in college, but English in college was not creative writing. It was, reading the classics and blah, blah, blah. And I did not ever finish that double major. I was like just a few classes shy of it because I just got so bored with it, to be honest. Alexis, I miss cafes and writing co-work space too. I mean, I don't have a co-work space here, but we were going to our Panera every week to write, and I just really, really miss it. So in terms of where did I learn to write, I'm just totally self-taught, and just from reading other books and becoming aware of how sentences are put together. And once I started writing, I started realizing when I would realize where I was fumbling, like, wait a minute, this isn't coming out smoothly. How do other people do it? Then I would go to books of authors that I love the most, and I would learn from them. Oh, I see how she's putting that sentence together. Oh, I see how they did that twist or that multiple POV or, whatever. It's like, I really, really want to get better at writing multiple POV, but there are no great books about writing multiple points of view. So who do I go to? Like one of the absolute masters, which is Robert Jordan, who has the series The Wheel of Time, which is what our daughter is named after, a main character in that. And it's like a writing masterclass reading his work, because it's such a huge world with all this multiple POV. And I can learn so much more from just observing his writing than anything else. But I also am a craft book freak. Like, I've read almost every craft book ever written on dialogue and setting and scene and all of that. So when George originally said to me, you can quit your job. This was 13, 14 years ago. He said, you can quit your job as a teacher and move in with me, and I will support you for 5 years. What do you want to do? And I was like, I want to be a writer. Hello. Yes, let's do this. And I had to sit there once I moved in with him and was like, oh my God, how do I do this? I realized I had no idea how to write a novel. So I went basically and bought every book I could buy. So Evie's name is Nynaeve. So it's Nynaeve, Nynaeve. And we know for sure that's how he says it, because we went through videos. He's obviously passed away now, unfortunately, but he did have a video where he was talking about how you pronounce the names of his characters. So it's Nynaeve is how you pronounce it. But that's how I learned to write, and where I learned to write is through reading authors that I like and through pretty much every craft book. And if you want to know what my favorite craft books are on writing, you can go over to my Heart Breathings channel. It's just youtube.com/heartbreathings. And I have an entire series on how to plot a novel. And there's a download that comes with that has a list of all my favorite books on writing. Maria says, how old were you when you started writing? So I was 30 when I started writing. So now I just totally aged myself. I'm 43 and a half, or a little over 43 now. And I didn't start really writing until I was 30 years old. I had written always like journaling and like stupid teenage love story, like, stuff like that, the terrible, terrible poetry and things like that. But I didn't try to start writing an actual book until I was 30. Magda says, Sarah, could you talk about the first time in your life that you thought or felt that writing is what you want to do? I don't mean writing as a job for money. I mean, what was your first time as a human you wanted to create and express yourself by writing? So maybe this is why I love Hello Kitty so much, but really and truly, like I make fun of like, oh, those terrible early like books and stuff like that. But I did write a lot of stories and a lot of journaling, and I sort of fell in love with books when I was about 8 years old. And I realized I remember it very, very vividly, because I think it was about probably 7, almost 8, somewhere between. And it was just a Saturday where there was nothing much to do. And I had checked out a book from the school library called Miss Frisbee and the Rats of Nim. So many of you know this as The Secret of Nim was made into a movie and so forth. But that book was the first book that I started reading in the morning one day on a Saturday. And I could not stop reading it. And it was like, what is this magical thing? Because I had read kids' books before that, like board books and little picture books and stuff like that. But that was the first book that like grabbed my imagination, and I could not put it down. And so I was like, I want to do this. How do I learn to do this with my life? And I really, really loved the idea of being a writer. So my parents got me a Hello Kitty, like one of those diaries that has the lock to it. And so I started writing in that, and I would write poetry, I would write stories and different things like that. Even just some of it, just journaling about, oh, I like this boy, whatever. But that journal was really the first thing. So I would say really about 7.5 years old is when I was like, I really would like to do this with my life. It took me a long time to get back to that place, for various reasons, but yeah, I think that was about when. Karen asked, what's the name of the very first story that you wrote? So let's see. I had a really terrible story that I wrote in high school that got ripped apart by a contest, but I don't even remember what that was called. So we're just going to skip that one. Once I was 30 and I decided I wanted to write, the first book that I actually wrote doesn't still have an ending, but it was a NaNoWriMo novel over 10 years ago, was called Into Darkness. And it was about a set of twins, boy-girl twins, who are in college. And the girl is in college in New York. The brother is in college in Tennessee. And she gets a call that her brother is being accused of murdering his professor, and he's gone. No one can find him. So she leaves school and flies to Tennessee to look into this murder because she knows that her twin brother couldn't have done it. So, but it looks like all evidence points to him. And of course it's paranormal, and there's a little romance with the local cop and all of that stuff. So I wrote that book. That was my first real book, but I just never finished it. So yeah, maybe I should go back and finish it. That's a book that I had printed it out back when I used to print my stories. And George somehow got a hold of it. I don't even know. He was just going through my stuff. I don't even know. And he started reading it. And one day he's like, where's the rest of this one? And I was like, what are you talking about? So mad. He's like, where's the rest of this story with the brother and sister? I'm like, I never finished that book. And he was so upset. What do you mean there's no finish to this? But it was NaNoWriMo. I hit 50,000 words and I was done. And I never finished it. Okay. So, Terry asks, when do you start writing? Do you finish plotting the entire book before you begin, or do you do a little bit of both at the same time? So I feel like I need to plot as much as I can. It's also a lot of my writing process is instinctual at this point, but it's like I can't start writing without a plot. I need a plot. I have to figure it out. I need to know the beginning, the middle, and the end. And sometimes it can change as I write, and it usually does change as I write. But I need to feel like I have control over the story, which is truly an illusion. And then I will start writing. So I don't usually have every single scene plotted out before I start writing, but I do usually know the first act of the story. And then I know what the midpoint is going to be, especially in terms of where the character arc is. And then I usually know the twist at the end, and then I get started. So that's kind of the answer to that. Let's see. So many questions, y'all. I feel like I answered Nilda's question about how did I create a story, or where does it come from? Do you make a list of how things will develop, or you let the story take a life of its own? So like I said, I come up with those turning points. So I usually know that first act and then the big twists of the story, but then I let the rest of it sort of come. And as I'm writing, I need to, that was funny, Emmy. As I'm writing, I will just let it flow. If something comes that changes the story, I feel like it needs to change. And it sometimes can be frustrating, but there have also been times, I'll tell you guys this little story. My very first published book, Beautiful Demons, I wrote it, over the course of several weeks. And when I got to the ending, the killer, and nobody say because it's a spoiler, so we won't say who the killer was, but the killer was someone that I didn't expect. So I thought I knew the ending, and it ended up surprising me. And so I turned around when I finished that rough draft and basically rewrote the entire book because I realized that I had messed up. And so I give myself that freedom of, kind of just using the first draft to explore the story. So I need kind of like an outward like outline, but then I allow it to change as I go. Viva La Hyphen on Instagram says, when do you know to give up on a story if it's just not coming together? When you're not sure if you're passionate about the idea or just stubborn about moving on? You know, I feel like I never fully give up on a story completely, but I did at the beginning. So I think it depends on where you are in the process. Like right now, everything that I'm writing and everything I'm interested in writing, I feel like I know enough and have enough experience to know that I can eventually get that story, that it's waiting for me to like dig it up, but it does exist somewhere. But when I was first writing, I gave up on a lot of stories because I had that initial idea and then I started to realize this isn't big enough for a story. So I think it kind of depends on where you are as a writer and where your skill level is. Yes, George, I gave up on your vampire romance. I'm not even going to tell that story. He's so crazy. He tried to get me to write a vampire romance and he wrote the outline for it and told me I had to write it. I did not write that story. But I think that it's just, if you're at the beginning of your writing career, I think you have to get your hands dirty with it. But I think it's a more complicated answer than I can give just in a couple of minutes, because it depends on your own personal like limitations and blocks. Because I think a lot of times we can tell ourselves, you know what, it's just not coming. This story isn't coming together. It's no good. I'm going to move on to the next story. And then we can get stuck in a loop where we're doing that with every single story we write. Pretty much every story I write, I hit a point in the middle where I think this isn't coming together. I can't figure out where it's going to go. Maybe it's not a good enough idea. I just feel like this is the worst book I've ever written and I have to give up on it. And in the beginning, I allowed myself to hit that midpoint or hit that tough part of the book and give up on it completely because I just didn't have the confidence to keep going. But once I actually finished a book and just pushed through that difficult time and made it to the end, oh my gosh, it was like my whole world changed because I realized they're all difficult. They're all hard eventually. The beginnings for me are easy. Some people find the endings easy. Some people find the middles easy. And you have to write to figure out what's easy or hard for you as a person, as an individual. But I think that if you find yourself in a loop of constantly giving up on your books because you feel like they're not coming together, then there's a problem with your process and your confidence. So I highly encourage you to just pick the next story or pick the most recent story or the one you like the most and just dedicate yourself to finishing it, even if you feel like it's not coming together, because you need the confidence of finishing a story. All right. How in depth do you go when plotting your antagonist? This is from Rosencrantz32 on Instagram, or minor characters. So it depends on the story, but I actually like to go pretty in depth on the antagonist because I feel like the antagonist influences the entire character arc of the protagonist. So if you don't know the language, antagonist is the villain, the enemy, the bad guy. And so especially in my Shadow Demon saga, like I haven't even revealed the identity of the high priestess or the diamond priestess in my Shadow Demon saga, but I know everything about that person because everything that's going on with Harper and all of the other crew has to do with that person's motivation. So I go pretty in depth with that motivation in terms of, figuring out who they are. I don't necessarily go through and figure out their entire plot line, but I do a lot of journaling about why is this person doing this? Why do they want what they want? Why are they being this way? Or why did they kidnap this person? All of that. I do a pretty in-depth journaling about it. Janae says that was my question about when to move on. And my husband gave me the same sort of response. I think he's my George. Oh, that's the sweetest thing ever. Yeah. I think that if you're in that if you're in that place, you gotta push through and finish. And even if you throw it away later, you need to finish. When you're, this is PL Kiger on Instagram. When you're plotting, do you already know all the little clues and twists, or do they get added later? Thinking about things like the poison ivy in the witch's key. I mean, I feel like I should say, oh, I know it all. But the honest truth is that I don't. And sometimes I'll write stuff in, like from Beautiful Demons. Lark has, and some of you that have read the series will know this, and some of you will not. So you'll have to just read to find out. But Lark has a butterfly tattoo on her back. And when I wrote that, I had no idea why or what that meant, but I understood it when I got to writing book 6 of the series. So I have this, you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but I have this idea or this sense that a lot of times things are coming either from so deep in my subconscious, or they're coming from somewhere outside of me. And I'm just plucking these ideas, and it just comes together in a magical way. This has happened so many times in my writing that it's like, I don't know why, but I just know this has to go into the book. And so I trust it and I put it in there, and I don't know how it's going to come back. I do have other writer friends who know every little tiny twist and turn, and they write it really, tight, and they put all the little plants and clues in there. But I a lot of times have no idea, and it surprises me. And that's part of the fun of it, because I think it feels kind of like magic. Yaquise Welcher says, how did you figure out you needed or wanted a tarot coach? How has it transformed your life and your writing? So a lot of people will ask me if I use my tarot cards in my writing, and I don't. So I feel like I probably should use it more often. And I know that some people have recommended a book to me about how to use actual like tarot readings in your plot and stuff, but I have not done that ever. I use it more for spiritual things, but I feel like where I am emotionally and mentally affects my writing to such a strong degree that it does come together. Now, I personally did not seek out a tarot life coach. I was going through some really tough times as I was dealing with some of this like narcissistic abuse from my childhood and kind of awakening to it. And I found her talking about how like so many people just kept saying, oh, you need a mindset shift. You need a mindset shift. And I was like, mindset shift makes me feel like I can control it. But I don't feel like I'm in control of this, like things that are happening in my mind. I don't know if this makes any sense to you guys, but I was on, a Facebook group called B Schoolers, and asked a question about this upper limit type problems. And this tarot life coach, Tanya Gonzalez, commented and said, you don't need a mindset shift. What you need is an energy shift. And my whole body went up in chills, and I was like, I need to talk to this woman. And I just felt so drawn to her. And then I started working with her. And then through that working with her, she became my tarot life coach. So I didn't really know that I needed it, but it just became something that was huge in my life. And even 4 years later, I'm still working with her. She's amazing. And it's the way that it's really helped me is that it's helped me work through a lot of trauma in my life and helped me connect to that part of myself that knows that I'm okay. And I think that before I was working with her, I felt like I was fundamentally flawed, and that there was just something wrong with me, and that I didn't deserve happiness, But after working with her and working with tarot and developing like my own spiritual practice, I feel like now I understand like if there's anything wrong with me, I'm willing to work through it, but I'm not fundamentally flawed. I'm fundamentally a wonderful person who, we all are. Fundamentally, we're all good people who want the best for ourselves and those around us. And I don't know, it starts to get too cheesy there, but I just feel like I needed it in my life, and it came to me without me having to seek it. Kristen Walker on Instagram says, do you incorporate witchcraft into your writing practice? Like, do you cast spells to help with your creativity, or ask for guidance when you don't know where to go with a story? So this is something I really haven't I've used manifestation sometimes when I've had writer's block, and it hasn't really worked well for me because I think that I was too resistant to it working and I was just having a hard time. So, I do not incorporate any type of spell casting in my writing, but I have seen other people that do. And so I'm curious about it, but I just haven't yet done anything like that. Deb asks lots of questions. So we have lots of questions from Deb. So we just picked a few. So what do you enjoy the most or least in your writing process? So I just enjoy the most is when those little twists happen, like when I just feel like I'm in the flow and something comes that surprises me. That's my favorite thing. What I enjoy the least is when I feel like I'm stuck on a plot. Because when a plot is stuck for me, I can go round and round in circles and it just feels like it's never coming together. And that's the most frustrating thing that I come across. What are your top 3 genres to read? So pretty much what I write, like YA, mystery, paranormal type stuff, I love to read, but I also love to read psychological mysteries, whether they're paranormal or not. I love those types of books, partially because they're standalone. And so, you can read them in a short serving or in a single day and get really immersed in it. And those books are really fast paced and there's usually good twists and turns. I love that. Books like Gone Girl and stuff like that. And then my third is definitely epic fantasy, like Wheel of Time. Playlists. There were a couple people that asked about playlists and whether I write to music. I do not put together specific playlists for characters usually because I feel like I don't know enough different music and I'm so busy. This sounds so terrible, but I'm so busy. I don't have time to go searching for music that would match this character. So I just don't do that. What I like to listen to is music without words. Recently I've been listening to Chilled Cow here on YouTube, which is lo-fi music, study kind of music. I love it. It just gets me into the flow. I've tried to use stuff like Brain FM and that did not work for me at all. Focus FM worked better. Brain FM made me feel like I was loopy or something. It just messed with my brain. But I have to have music on. I feel like I need it otherwise. But sometimes if I hit a scene where I'm writing something really difficult, especially like a fight scene or a magic scene, and I've really got to put myself in the scene, I have to write to silence. So it kind of depends, but most of the time I write to music. Lori Ann Miller said, which of your original characters do you relate to the most or enjoy writing the most? I mean, original characters do I relate to the most? They're all kind of like me in some ways, but I think probably just I have to say Harper because I've been writing her the longest that she feels like she's a part of me. In terms of which character do I like writing the most, that is really tough too. I really like writing. Oh, I hear a baby. I like writing Airden's character in the Shadow Demon Saga. If you've just started the Shadow Demon Saga, you won't know Airden yet, but you will meet him later. Okay. Evie, you want to say hi to everybody? You got a little dress and leggings. Say hi. Airden is probably one of my favorite characters to write because I think that he's just been through so much that I like writing his character. Also in my Eternal Sorrow series, Crash is one of my favorites. So it's kind of funny that I really like writing the male characters to a degree. I also really, really loved writing Rend's character. I would like to write more about Azure too, because I think she's an interesting character. I don't know, y'all. That's a really tough question. Do you do a lot of research for your stories? And if so, how or what type of research do you do? I do almost zero research. And maybe I'm not supposed to tell that because maybe we're supposed to do a lot of research. I know I have a lot of friends that do tons and tons of research. I do almost nothing. When I did write, so I have the Spirit Walker series, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that has Native American stuff. And, I am not Native American, but I wanted to write about Native American lore and legends. So I did do some research. And originally, for example, I was calling this woman that she goes to see a shaman. And then in my research, I realized that you wouldn't call a Native American woman like that a shaman. You would actually call them a medicine woman. So it's like I tried to do some research as much as possible. But I think part of why I love to write fantasy is that you can really kind of do your own thing. When it comes to like the Eternal Sorrow series, which is my zombie apocalypse witches series, I did do quite a bit of research on like what roads would be if they're trying to make their way to New York City, what roads would they take and stuff like that. But I really don't go too deep into research because I don't want to. um, right. No shamans like EQ, right? Stephanie Schubert asked, do you plan to write any more of your short stories? Like Ella in the Haunted House is amazing. I'd love to hear more of Ella's story. I also would love to read more of Loxley. So the next set of questions I'll try to go through somewhat quickly are mostly about stuff I'm currently writing. So I definitely want to write more short stories. Like I have one that I've been working on that I want to do as a free read. Maybe she'll come back. I want to do as a free read that we'll see. I've been working on it kind of off and on. So I want to write more short stories, but the only short stories that I know I want to write more of are Loxley. I would love to write a whole series based on that world. I get a little bit nervous because it's going to be such a diversion from what I'm currently writing, because it'll be more science fiction than paranormal, even though it'll have fantasy style elements within the game world. It just worries me because I think, what if nobody wants to read it? Like, what if it's so different from what my fans like that they won't read it? So that's been like a little bit of a nervousness for me with that book. But I have that short story read. And I would really like to write a dedicated story from Connery because I like his character. But I don't, even though I feel like you could make a whole series out of Ella in the Haunted House, I think I'm probably just done with it. And it's just a short story. Leah asked, will there be a series from Deep Dark Secrets? So absolutely. There are 3 books in that series. As far as I know, like I said, sometimes if I get to book 3, I'm going to realize there needs to be a book 4. But that is meant to be a series. And I think it will be a trilogy. Unfortunately, I know it's just been difficult because I was writing so many things. Many of you that have been around for a long time know that I wrote that book, Deep Dark Secrets, to get myself out of a really rough time of writer's block. And you guys didn't really know this at the time, but that's when I was dealing with all that stuff with my mother and cutting her out of my life. I had a lot of issues with my family at the time, and life was really, really hard. And I knew I was supposed to be writing the next Shadow Demons book, and I couldn't get myself to an emotional, mental place to do it. And so I wrote this other book that was just really fun and exciting start. But then I started a new series. I haven't had a chance to go back and finish it. So my plan right now is to finish out Fate's Surrender and then finish out the Demon Saga, and then to finish out Spirit Walkers next year. It is coming. I have whole outlines done for it. I even have covers done for it. It is coming. It's just I can only write so fast, and I missed a lot of time due to, last year and like the last year and a half of missing time. So I apologize for the wait, but there is more coming for sure. Aries Queen said, are we going to get a new Shadow Demons book anytime soon? And I probably had 10 people ask this question, and I know it's kind of the most common question. So yes, Vengeful Darkness is book 11. It's the next Shadow Demon Saga book. It will be out hopefully this summer. So I'm finishing up Fate's Surrender. It's going to be I'm hoping I can finish Fate's Surrender early May, and I'm going to hopefully put it up for pre-order at the end of May. Then I will immediately be starting Vengeful Darkness, and I'm hoping I can have it out by July. Then my hope is when that book comes out towards the end of July, if I can stay on schedule, we will do a 16-week Shadow Demon Saga read along. And then after read along, we will finish out the Demon Saga. And I'm not going to tell you the name of the last book yet, but it's kind of hard. So yeah, it'll be 12 books. It's hard for me to think about ending it, to be honest. Cherie Ahmet says, have you considered writing another romance series like Fairhope? So I actually really loved writing the Fairhope series. And I think that a lot of cathartic, how do I put it? That was a therapeutic or cathartic series for me to write because it was very much from my own life. And in some ways, if you ask which character do I like relate to the most, a lot of ways it is Leanne from that series. Like she's almost exactly me in a lot of ways because I wrote a lot of my own life experience into her book. But I kind of feel like I just am drawn more to writing things with witches and paranormal and something speculative. And so while I loved writing that series, right now I don't have any plans to write anything like it. Amanda Rice said, I was wondering if you were ever going to do a dragon series. I am, I'm really interested in dragons. And like I said, I have some epic fantasy style ideas. So you never know. We'll see. Jennifer M. Perkins says, once the Shadow Demon series is finished, are you thinking about making any of the existing side stories or giving any of the characters their own series? So we've talked about this before. So I have an idea potentially for a series called Venom that will be set on basically in the Venom like world of that club. So if you haven't read this, there's a spin-off series to the Shadow Demon saga called the Sacrifice Me series. And in that series, there's a character named Rend who runs a club called Venom. And so I have wanted to write an additional spinoff where you would have Rend and Frankie as POV characters, but the main story would revolve around the other characters with kind of like Rend and Frankie being like anchors to the series. So I've thought about that. And in that story, or if I do that series, it's going to have side stories of characters like another 50 books, maybe. It's going to have side characters featured like Marcus, Azure, Connery, maybe even Marianne and Essex might get a book based on them. Silas for sure. So lots of different character. I think part of what I'm wondering about that though is would that be life after Shadow Demons? So like whatever happens in the climax of that book, how would that affect the demons, like the Venom world? And I'm not sure. And truthfully, I don't even know if all those characters will survive because I haven't written that series yet, the end of that series. So we'll see. There's also another character that I'm not going to say who, that a lot of people love that I have thought of doing an entire side series of her. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I need to decide once I get to that final Shadow Demons book if I think that I want to continue on with it or if I just want to be done. Because I've spent 10 years of my life writing this series. It's like, do I want it to just be done and move on, or do I want to write more? And I just haven't decided. Sandy asked, how likely is it you'll do your own audiobook? I don't know. I mean, I never really thought about it. So how do you feel about Japanese? Yeah, order, go, sushi. I don't know, you guys. I think that it's something brand new I'm sort of thinking about. I don't know. I'll have to get back to you guys on that. It's like, would I be good enough to read my own stuff? It's like fine for YouTube, like reading it for you guys here, but like, would you pay for that? I don't know. I don't know if I'm good enough at it. Christina Fights on IG says, how do you handle your income going down because of no new releases for over a year, both practically and mentally? Has it affected your lifestyle and budget? Hi from Norway. So I almost didn't put this question on here because it is personal and it's hard to talk about income. But I thought, I said, ask me anything. So we're just going to talk. And we are down to the last few questions for now. So I feel like for sure, one thing when you're an indie author that you need to understand is unless you're like the number, maybe the top 10 indie authors, there are no guarantees about your income. Like there's no guarantee that just because this one series did really well, like for example, my Shadow Demon saga has sold over 500,000 copies, like paid copies. I've made over $1 million over the course of the last, 10 years. On that series, but there's no guarantee that if I put out another series that people will like it just as much. Like if you compare that to my Eternal Sorrows series, that series has only sold 10,000 copies. That's a huge difference. I mean, there's more books in the other series, but still, like, there's no guarantees as a writer that people are going to like it. There's also no guarantees of what's going to happen to the market. So like when Kindle Unlimited first started, it's like most of the people I know, their income halved. And it's a great program for readers. And I understand there's a lot of readers that love it and use it, but it's really, really bad for a lot of indie authors. And a lot of indie authors lost their income because of Kindle Unlimited. And so when that happened, it absolutely affected my income as well. And I think that emotionally, it's difficult. So when you take that, the market changes, in addition to the fact that I haven't published a book in a year and a half, absolutely my income has gone down. It's probably half of what it was a year ago. And that can be emotionally very difficult, but of course it's also practically very difficult. And there are definitely days when I think, will I ever be able to get back to where I was a few years ago? Because to be honest, like back in 2015, I didn't have a single month that I made less than $20,000. And that's just being honest. Now, no way, nowhere near $20,000 a month. And so it's like, wow, I'm super, super grateful for those years that I had that were really good. But obviously, once Kindle Unlimited started, it affected all of us in that way. And so it's like, will I ever get back there? I don't know. So I found that I have to kind of detach myself from that trap of feeling like the income is a reflection of my worth as a human being. Because whether people are buying my books or not, whether I'm writing consistently or not, whether the market is supporting me or not, I'm still a good person and I'm still a worthy person. And my income and those numbers do not determine my worth. So that's one thing. Number two is that I guess you could say smart, but it's really just following my passion. But I diversified. When I saw that things were happening with Kindle Unlimited, and a lot of people were like, you guys, I have friends that went from like $300,000 a year indie to $40,000 a year after Kindle Unlimited started. And so you talk about a hit. And so when I saw that starting to happen, I diversified and I started YouTube, I started courses, I started a planner, and it's all stuff that comes from my passion. I'm not doing any of this because it's like, oh, I've got to make money, I'm going to do this thing. It's just like, even truthfully, YouTube, I didn't know would ever make me any money. I just truthfully did not think that doing YouTube and Heart Breathings would make me any money. I was just doing it because I wanted to help writers so much. And I was so passionate about it. And truthfully, it was George's idea because I had a lot of friends that would ask me, what are your strategies? What do you do? What do you do? Or what are you doing with your planner and all of this kind of stuff? And so what I would do is I would talk to them individually for hours and hours. And George was like, you know what? You don't have time to be talking to 100 different people for 3 hours a week. Like, you just can't do it. So he's like, why don't you do videos and then you can talk to everybody all at once and put your ideas out there. So that's what I decided to do. And thankfully, that has actually led to a nice second income for us and for our family. And if it wasn't for Heart Breathings, things would probably be really tough right now. But I also really, really want to get my writing income back to where it was. And I just am trying to stay confident that it will happen. So practically, I diversified my income and brought it from multiple places. Mentally, I just try to separate my worth and say, regardless of what those numbers are. But to be totally honest, some days it's really hard because sometimes I look at the sales numbers and I'm like, gosh, compared to where I was 3 or 4 years ago, it's not the same. But you got to keep writing. That's part of being a writer. You have to just keep writing. So Nicole was like, would you ever go for traditional publishing? I think that being traditionally published after being indie and being in control for so long would be really tough. Because traditional publishing, I look at it this way. I feel like it's not just a matter of, do I want a publisher to help me? It's also, do I want to give up control over my books 100%? Do I want to go from making 70% royalty to making 4% royalty or whatever, 10% royalty or less? Do I want a publisher to say, this isn't good enough, rewrite it or whatever. I really don't know. And I don't have the experience of ever working with a publisher or an editor that I had to listen to or a contract I had to listen to. So I think like it might be really tough. But there are also days when I think like, what if a publisher could get me a movie deal? Or what if a publisher could put me into the public eye in a way that I can't do for myself? So sometimes it does come to my mind. And sometimes I usually am just kind of like, I don't think it's for me. So I don't know. It's kind of hard. Yeah, hybrid would be kind of doing both. And like I said, there are days sometimes when I think maybe, and then most of the time I'm like, I think that would be too hard. Like just not being able to see my daily sales numbers would be really, really tough, to be honest. I also think there are some indie authors that people have really loved that once they like, I don't want to name names, but once they started publishing traditionally, a lot of their like passion was edited out. And I think that's part of the beauty of being indie is like, maybe the story isn't as polished, but it's truly just your passion. And maybe it's not perfect grammar or like, every single story structure isn't there, but it's like your true passion is there in a way that it might not be if you get hooked up with the wrong editor. But I also feel like if you got hooked up with a really, really good editor, maybe you could discover even better writing than you ever had before. I don't know. It's complicated. I think it would depend on what editor you worked with, though, and what publishing house you got with. Jamila Adams says, how is Andrew being a big brother? I'm curious because there's a 7-year age gap between my girls, and it's always interesting to see how other kids deal with being an older sibling. Y'all, he's doing so good. I think in the beginning, there was a lot of that anticipated. He was saying a lot of things like, I want to be a baby too, because she was getting so much attention. But now that she's like crawling and she's more alert and she's like interacting more with him, he's having such a blast. And all the time he's like, I want to play with Evie. I want to play with Evie. So he's doing such a good job. Sometimes he even feeds her and stuff. He hasn't changed her diaper yet, but he does, he does a really good job. And I think it'll get even better the older they get. I am 5 years apart from both of my siblings. So my sister's 5 years older and my brother's 5 years younger. And that worked out pretty well, but 7 is a pretty big gap. But yeah, Evie finds him hilarious. So he can definitely make her laugh a lot. And we haven't been in the car as much lately. Obviously, like we got in the car last night for the first time in a month, I think, or more, as a family. And we were doing like a drive-through birthday party for one of Andrew's fellow classmates. We just all drove by and honked the horn and gave her a sign and stuff like that because she couldn't have a party. So that was the first time we've all gotten in the car, but he does such a good job keeping her occupied in the car. So that's good. Also, another, question about Andrew. Nikki Wilshire asked, does Andrew share your love of writing? He does say more and more, I want to be a writer. He shares my love of reading, no doubt. And more, yeah, he does say, I want to be a writer too. And he's actually been writing his own books and he wants to know if he can publish them, but they're just like, like little drawings and stuff. I'm like, no, you can't publish that, but just keep working. Helen Bloomfield DeRose says, do your family share your mystical ways and passions? So I would say no. I hope that Evie will share it. Andrew gets really interested. He wants to draw a tarot card. And then he's like, is that a good card? And I have to explain to him, it's like, there are no good or bad cards. There's just, messages that you can get from it. But George is very different from me. He's much more logical brained, and sometimes I'll say, well, this is the sign from the universe. And he's like, it's not a sign from the universe. It's this, this, and this, he's like much more logical, but we both come to the same conclusion in the end. So he's very respectful of my beliefs, but I would not say that George is really like mystical. But he also believes things like if I'm not writing, it gives him nightmares, and like that my brain waves can influence him, but he feels like it's more science than, than any others. Chantel Suma Martin says, what do you do with your old planner pages? Do you toss them or keep them? So I tend to keep my planner pages for about a year or two because they could be like, if we get audited, some of them can be actually valuable for saying where I was when I was driving somewhere, or did I go on this retreat, whatever. And my accountant told me to keep them. So I will usually, because I use 6-ring binder, I'll pull them out and I'll put them into another one of these that are in storage kind of. And then 2 years from now, I will dump them out and just throw them out. I was recycling them until somebody was like, oh, if you put stickers and washi tape on it, you can't actually recycle it. And then I was like, oh no, now I feel bad because I would like to recycle, but I guess you can't do that. So I just toss them. Yikes. So Mimi Levinson says, what's in all those flat file drawers? So all of these drawers, I have 3 of these things here. And then this desk that matches. These are Martha Stewart craft furniture. So they're really like these first 3, or actually the first 4 are really thin drawers. And then the bottom 4 are bigger drawers. And I will do a special like office tour or whatever to show you guys what's in them, because they are pretty well organized, probably the best that I've ever had organized in this house. And so it's all my crafting supplies. It's like these 2 drawers right here are all Erin Condren supplies. I've got washi tape over there. I've got like all the supplies for my Cricut. I've got, oh my gosh, so many things. And unfortunately, Emmy, I don't think that I can give you a link for that because I think they discontinued this furniture. I got it at Home Depot for my 40th birthday. My husband gave me this as a gift for my 40th birthday, and I think they discontinued it. I'm sorry. They're amazing. But every time we move, like you can kind of see actually like right there, it's like not quite lining up just right. I think every time we move, they get kind of messed up. So hopefully they'll make it one week because we're renting right now and we're hoping to be able to buy soon. Oh gosh. So, all right, we're almost done. Woo. All right, Evelyn, is there anything we can do for you? I know we're not close to you or able to physically help you, but is there anything that you need that you can't get down there? So thoughtful. Evelyn, you're amazing. That is such a thoughtful question. And, truthfully, the best thing you guys can do for me is just show up and, being here. This has been amazing. I was so nervous. Like, honestly, when I was thinking about doing a story on YouTube, I was like, will anybody come? What if it's only 3 or 4 people? George and I had a discussion about it, and we said, you know what, even if it's 3 or 4 people, if I can help them get through a really difficult time where there's a lot of people with, feeling down, there's a lot of negativity, there's a lot of people, dealing with depression and other things and fear. It's like, if I could just help 3 people, it's worth it, and let's do it. And it's helping me too. So I decided to do it. And the fact that there's been 100 or more people almost every single day is just amazing. And yeah, it's like something I talk about with my business mentor, Amber, a lot is like, what are your core values? And this is something George and I talked about when I first became a writer. It's like, what do you most want to get out of this? Because what you want to get out of your actions is going to make you do it differently. And I talk about this in some of my courses too for heart breathings, is like, if you care about making more money than anything else, then you would treat your career very differently, because you might, like, let's say that you had to choose between writing a genre that makes a lot of money and writing a genre that's really kind of less popular. If you really cared more about money than writing what you love, you would do a very strategic type of career and write something that is more popular. But if you found that your true goal was, this is the story I just have to write, and it's okay if I don't make as much money, then you have to understand that maybe it's not going to be as popular. And we're always kind of making those judgment calls, and there's no right or wrong way. It's just what's right for you. And one of my core values, and what I said I cared about more than anything, and this is what helped me go indie instead of worrying about Trad Pub, is that I realized I didn't care about seeing my book on a bookshelf. I didn't care about being picked up by a publisher or having my name in Publishers Weekly. Like, that stuff didn't matter to me. What mattered to me was getting my books out in the hands of fans and building a community and changing lives. If I could make people feel like they're encouraged or get them through difficult times by entertaining them, that's all that mattered to me. And so that's what I wanted to do with starting this story. So really and truly, the best thing you guys can do for me is continue to show up, give me feedback on things that, like, oh, I don't think we're going to be able to keep going every single day, but we'd love to do it Monday, Wednesday, or whatever. That kind of stuff is really super, super important. Renee Barrett says, how do you, I put this one last, Renee, if you're here, I think I did see you were here earlier. How do you develop an idea from start to end? And what is the hardest part? This is like a question I could talk about for 2 hours. It's a really, really tough question to answer fast. But since we're here, oh yay, hey Renee. I will just say, if you haven't seen it, if you go and watch, I have a video on my Heart Breathings channel about how I plot a story. That is going to probably carry you through the whole process. But I think that developing an idea from start to finish for me is very much like what I had talked about earlier, that I get that sort of initial vision for the story. Then I figure out who these characters are, like especially my antagonist and my protagonist, like my heroine, who is she? What's important in her life? Then I figure out what are those turning points in the story? What's the big twist at the end of the first act? What's the midpoint? And once I have those twist turns, I can then start writing. So from start to finish, that's kind of how I go. And then I just take it one scene at a time, one thing at a time. And then, if I hit any kind of rocky parts in the middle, sometimes I will skip around if I need to, and I'll go to the next scene that I know, or I will, George and I will go and talk and we'll just figure it out on a walk, because sometimes getting my body moving will help. So I think that's kind of the start to finish thing. But I also, like I said, stay flexible, that if halfway through the book something changes and I have to go back and rewrite, I allow myself to do that, because sometimes, if you get stuck on a place and like you can't move forward, sometimes it's because something at the beginning needs to change. And even if it means like rewriting the whole thing, that's what has to happen. The hardest part of the process for me is the self-doubt, that there's always a part middle of the book or so forth that I feel like it's the worst book I've ever written. It's not coming together. All the fans are going to be disappointed. Another one that George hears all the time is, I'm afraid it's really boring. I'm always afraid that my books are boring. Even when I'm going to publish them, I'm afraid it's boring. So thank God for my beta readers that keep them from being boring, or that convince me to keep moving forward, even if I have a lot of self-doubt. So that's the hardest part, I think, is the self-doubt. Halen's World says, how long does it usually take you to finish a book? I don't know that there's a usual for me. Like this Fate Surrender book, y'all, I've been working on for 2 years and it's still not finished. But obviously The Witch's Key, I really just started, if we want to talk about in earnest, 2-3 weeks ago, and I'm almost done with it. So it's kind of like, how long does it take? I don't know. Beautiful Demons took me, I think, about a month or 6 weeks to write. And then I finished Inner Demons in only 4 weeks, because I was working so hard and I didn't have any kids, which has made it a lot easier. So yeah, sometimes it can take, I've had some books that have taken me years to write, and other books that I've written in a month or two. So it just depends on the book and how it comes out. Burgess Taylor says, do you read your books out loud when you're editing? I do often read them out loud. And if I don't read it out loud, I'll put it through naturalreaders.com, where it's just a free tool that you can use, that you can set the speed and you can set the voice and all of that and have it read it to me, because so often that's how you catch so many of the typos. And it may be time consuming, that it takes you hours to do it, but it's so worth it, because I guarantee you, if you read an author who has a ton of typos or missing words, it's because they didn't read their book. And it's one of the simplest things that you can do to make your book even better, is to read it. So I highly recommend that. And if you don't want to read it to yourself, because sometimes you may still skip over words, I highly recommend using naturalreaders.com to do that. So I saw something Jennifer said, that it's a nursing home. I'm so sorry. My sister-in-law works at a nursing home. I hope everybody's going to be okay. Y'all, that's really devastating when it goes through a nursing home like that. Erica says, do you offer a project plan or checklist of your steps? I don't. I have a checklist in my Publish and Thrive course, but I don't have anything that's just for free. I might, if you're interested in that though, I could put something together, like a little checklist for you guys, or for any authors. How do you choose your characters' names? Oh, Alexandria, that is such a good, do you want to come say hi? Andrew wants to say hi, you guys.
Hi.
Hi. You having fun? Yep. Character names, a lot of times I just, it's like a name will just come to me. Sometimes sometimes I even do things like I'll just Google like cool names for witches or fantasy name generator type stuff. And I won't always choose a name from that list, but it'll just give me that inspiration. I also have one of those like whatever 10,000 baby names or whatever books. And so I'll go through and highlight the names that I like best. So sometimes that is the best thing that I can do. All right. So I think that is almost all the questions. I did have some that came through on Instagram. But it's like, how do I find them? I don't know. I did that little like ask a question thing on Instagram. And then I was like, oh my gosh, how do I find the like the sticker? Oh, there they are. Okay. Let me see if I can see them all. There might be I can maybe answer a few more. If you guys could hit the like button, I appreciate it. If you want to stay and hang around, I can talk for a few more minutes. Jessica says, hi, Andrew. What's your favorite Pokemon? He's got the book, so he's been reading through all of them. Squirtle is your favorite? When we told him we were going to name Nynaeve and call her Eevee, he was like, that's a Pokemon. Right? Yeah, that's pretty funny. I don't know how to say it. Shu Hoas Hollow or whatever. I have a boy character in the book I'm writing, and he's taken on Andrew's face in my mind. So now her character looks like you. That's cool, right?
Is it a girl?
No, it's a boy.
You just said her.
No, I'm talking about her.
Oh.
Her being the person that said it. Do you write on paper and then on computer and then re-edit? No, I never write on paper. I write all of my plot stuff on paper, but I am all about type because I feel like my hand starts to cramp, and my hand, I know some of my friends like to write, like JD Robinson's in here. She sometimes will write, her stuff handwritten. I don't know how she does it. Also, you guys, she does have a YouTube channel too for authors. If you want to go check it out, she has a lot of cool content over there too. So go follow her YouTube channel. I have a touch lamp over here, so he's turning it on. But I never write my actual story on handwritten paper. I will do a lot of my brainstorming on handwriting, but yeah, I always do this. How long did it take you to figure out your whole organizational system? Kelly asked. Do you mean like the HB90 thing? So I have a system of planning called HB90 method, which is like the Heart Breathing's 90-day method. I think it probably took me 2 years to get that 100%, like the way it is now. And even now when I go through the process, I'm already still thinking of ways to like make it better. So yeah, probably 2 years of working on, like, I started small with a Kanban board, and then I started doing it a little differently. So it probably took me about 2 years to come up with that system. Andrew, do you like to write or just gaming? Angela asks.
Right?
Yeah.
Both,
he
more
says.
Gaming.
He likes gaming better. Jessica says, how do you stay motivated to write and edit your books when you have a setback after the other? One setback after the other. Yeah, it's really tough. Obviously, I have not done super well with this myself because of the whole fact that I haven't written a book in 1.5 years until The Witch's Key. So blah. I think that it can be tough to stay motivated. And so instead of asking yourself, how do I stay motivated? Ask, Andrew, don't do it again because I asked you not to. Okay. I think it can be tough to stay motivated but don't ask yourself, how do I stay motivated? How do I get more done? How do I get more done? Instead, take a step back and think, what do I need to nurture myself right now? What do I need in order to feel inspired again? Because I think that when we focus on how do we force ourselves to get back to work, sometimes we're asking the impossible of ourselves, and it's like just like trying to whip a horse. Whereas what we really need to be asking, and what affects me sometimes the best, is when I say things like, how can I get myself back to a place where I feel inspired to write again? And that will get me on a better path. Because for me, after a year and a half of not really writing, I was able to say, well, how can I serve my audience? And that got me writing again. Whereas maybe if I had asked myself a year and a half ago, how can I do something for you guys? It would have been easier for me to write, because I would have gotten into a place of like, how can I get excited for a story that they'll love, instead of thinking so much about how do I motivate myself more? Why am I not writing? And letting myself get down that like negative, thought spiral, so to speak. So thank you for the shout outs on the HB90. I love it. Do you plan to have other courses on heart breathing? So I have the 2 courses right now. I just have the HB90 course that I run every quarter. And then I also have my Publish and Thrive course, which is going to run probably twice a year. But I would like to I've been working on a social media planner. If I get that finished, then I will hopefully do a mini course that's just going to be maybe, $29 or something. That'll be a mini course on how to run social media as an author. But I just haven't had time to do it. So I do have some ideas for maybe a bigger course in the future that's just more on the mindset side of being an author than on the actual like marketing type stuff. So we'll see. I was going to see if there were any other questions from the Instagram thing. Somebody had asked, Ariel Julson says, I want to donate the profits of my book to a specific charity. How do I do that? So really all you have to do is just let people know if you want to use that as something they know they're going to be like donating to, so to speak, and just let them know that it'll be the profits of your course or of your book. And then all you do is just donate that money. Then if you want to, it depends on your tax structure. And I'm not an accountant, but like my book, A Life with No Regrets, I donated $1 from every sale of that book in the first year, which ended up being over $6,000, I think, to ALS. Because a good family friend had ALS. So we sent it into that. And that's all you have to do is just send it in and, dog ear it if it's coming from your business or if it's coming from you. More Shadow Demons books. Stephanie Whitson had asked, how do you feel about pen names? I have a super common first name. I think pen names is something that is very, very based on your own desire. If you have like having a common first name is not as much of a problem as having a really hard to pronounce first name or last name, because if it's really hard to pronounce, I think some people can be like, well, how do you say that? I don't know. I'm not going to pick up that book. But for the most part, I don't think pen names matter all that much unless you want to use it as a marketing tactic. So we always talk about how brilliant it is that my friend Danica Dark writes like paranormal romance and urban fantasy, because it's just the perfect like name for someone who writes paranormal stuff. It just sounds like a paranormal author. So it's like, if you're going to use a pen name, you might as well try to brand it to the type of writing that you're doing. But I wouldn't worry too much about pen names just because you have a common name, unless you had like a name that was like Nora Roberts. You wouldn't want to use her name because it's so important, so well known. Let's see.
Want some baby time?
Sure.
Can make another appearance.
I think that's most of them. It's so funny. It's like I asked on Instagram with a little thing, and I get these little spam things like, do you like self-improvement? DM the answer. Follow my account for more information. I think that's most of it. Does anybody else have any questions? I know you guys have been here with me for a really long time. I don't know if it's a lot of people coming in and out, but you all are awesome for hanging out with me for so long. I love it. This is really fun. Yeah. Do you have any advice on researching for a novel? So Anessa, I don't really know I don't do a ton of research, but if you mean, I guess, what do you mean by researching? Like, do you mean plot, like researching how to plot or how to get started with a novel? Or do you mean actually researching the like location and different things like that? I don't do a ton of research for my novel. And actually, I just go ahead and write. And then as I'm writing, I will, I will, leave myself a little note in the writing and say, research this later. Like when I was writing Sacrifice Me, I would put little XX because it was set in Chicago and I didn't really know that much about Chicago. So I just wrote it. And then as I was writing it, I would say, oh, how would she get from here to here? Would she ride the L? Is that what it's called? And I couldn't remember. So I would just make a note and keep writing. And then I would go later and fix it. So for me, that's kind of what I would do. But it's really just follow what you think works best for you, Anessa. If you feel like you like to do the research and you really enjoy it, then I would just start thinking about how do I want this research and location and everything else to inspire my story? How much research do I need to do? Is it a historical novel? Is it set in a unique location? Do you have any personal knowledge of it? And maybe just start making a list of the types of things that you want to research and then go for it. But for me, I usually do the writing and then figure out what I need to know and only look up those things. I'll go just a couple more minutes. Oh, I saw a series thing. Any tips on writing a series? Jolie, I am going to have an entire series of videos coming up in the next month on writing a series. So if you're not already following my Heart Breathings channel, go follow Heart Breathings, youtube.com/heartbreathings, because I am going to give you all my tips on writing a series. So I won't go into it now. Let's see. Who is your favorite villain you've written? Oh my gosh. Favorite villain.
A lot.
That's really tough.
You don't have any, do you?
I mean, I do.
Allergy?
I don't know. It's so hard to say who you like the best. This one's stumping me because there's so many that I like because I really like writing the villains and the Cupcake Lady. You don't know if she's a villain yet. There's been no reveal on that yet, Ember. We'll have to wait and see. I think that probably my favorite villain was probably Priestess Winter. And if you're just starting the Shadow Demon Saga, you'll get to know more and more about her, probably starting in book. Now you start to see her in book 3, and then it gets more from then. And there's some villains, I can't talk about yet because you don't actually know for sure. I do think I will have to say, okay, the Emerald Priestess, which again, if you're early in the Shadow Demon Saga and you haven't gotten to books 7 and 8, you don't know the Emerald Priestess very well, but she was really fun to write because she is twisted. The dolls, that still gives me the creeps, even though we just lost a Passy. Even though the Mother Crow is another good one, Janie. The Mother Crow was really fun to write, especially she was fun to write in the Shadow Demon Saga. But if you're reading the Shadow Demon Saga, you get to book 3, you're going to meet the Mother Crow, but you will really get to know the Mother Crow when you read the Sacrifice Me series. So, deleted. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff. It's not really a spoiler though. There's a lot of really cool villains. So I think that's been really fun. And I'm so nervous and excited about revealing the High Priestess or the Diamond Priestess because I don't know. We'll just see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Any other questions? And then we're going to call it because it's been over an hour and a half. It's kind of funny. So George said, I like the witch. Is she a villain? So in Eternal Sorrows, there's a witch who you kind of don't, that she's, I don't know, she's kind of a complex character, I would say. So I don't know if you would call her a villain or not, but kind of.
I've got a question for you, Mama.
I know you weren't trying to spoil Moana. I know it. How do you know about witchcraft? Karen asks. What?
I have a question. What's your favorite non-villain?
What's my favorite non-villain? I already answered that question.
Really?
Harper.
Okay.
So how do you know about witchcraft? So I really I've mentioned this before that like when I was younger, I was always interested in like crystals and gems and like finding herbs and stuff around my house. I grew up in a log cabin out in the middle of the woods. And I was interested in like Ouija board and just learning more about like the nature and properties of different energies. And I loved ghost stories and all kinds of stuff. And so I think I always wanted to learn more, but then I was scared because a lot of people were like, especially in small town in Georgia, like you're not allowed to know about that kind of stuff. And, are you making her laugh? So the only reason I know anything about witchcraft is more because in my adult life, I decided to start looking into it. And I still feel like I'm a real newbie. If you guys have ever read Yasmin Galenorn, she is like a real witch. And she has been super great in kind of guiding me into, okay, you're going to have to leave if you can't behave.
How do I get out?
She's a real witch and she's been kind of guiding me on some things as well as my tarot life coach. So I think it's just like I have found my people that I trust, like mentors, and sort of started to get to know, but there's still so much. And a lot of what I write in my books is just made up. So it's it's one of those kind of things. So I'm getting to know. Kaya says, are you going to do any more witchy videos? Yes, I'm going to definitely be doing more witchy videos. I'm actually going to be setting up kind of like a book of shadows coming up soon, like a grimoire. So I'm going to record that for you guys. I also have just some more like world building type stuff for witchy books and more vlogs. Oh, Mary Wright says, I love Yasmin. Her books were the first I got as a baby witch. Yes, she sent me her books to get started, which is really cool. So
You could do a video where Andrew interviews you.
I know. That would be a crazy video. Yes, she has a YouTube channel too. Yasmin does. So she's amazing. And even though she's all the way on the other side of the country, she lives on the other side of the country from me. She absolutely is amazing. And she's been very, very kind in helping me. She's a good friend of mine. So, all right, guys, I think that's it. I thought, there's no way I'm going to get through this in 30 minutes. And sure enough, here we are. An hour and 40 minutes in. So I'm just going to call it there and we're going to go eat some dinner and hang out as a family. But when it's over. Okay. Yay. But tomorrow I will have a video for you guys that is a day in the life that I recorded all day for yesterday that I hope you guys will enjoy. If you enjoyed this, please hit the thumbs up button and make sure that you subscribe to this channel. I'm going to see if I can figure out before Monday how to do like have a set thing where you can set a reminder and like scheduled video. So we'll see if I can do that. But hopefully you'll come back for episode 16 of The Witch's Key. It will be ending next week for sure. And definitely come and check out the vlog that's going to be going up tomorrow. It'll give you definitely an inside look at what our life is like as a family in a typical day. I told you guys I could talk forever. It can happen. It's definitely going to happen. So on Monday, I will let you guys know the plan for next week in terms of which, how many episodes there will be and all of that and what we're going to do for the finale, because it's going to be really cool. So, all right, y'all, I love you so much. Have a great weekend. I'll see you tomorrow in the recorded vlog, but I'll see you live again on Monday. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This was super fun. I appreciate it. All right. See you guys later. Say bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.